Hey there. Mm. Yeah. Okay, I want to welcome everyone tonight. My speaker, Shane Pott, canceled at the last minute due to the flu. So he's rescheduled for exactly a month from tonight, which will be March 12th, second Monday in March, to talk about his licensing experiences. So I'm just going to do basically license agreements. I've done this here a few times before, so feel free to ask questions at any time. I think, is there any new people here? I don't think there is. So I don't really have to go into what our group's about and the confidentiality of your information. So why don't we just do a round robin and talk about what you've got going on. I guess let's start with Richard.
Yeah, I'm Richard Hughes. All of my kids are Richard Phil Hopkins. But the fun hobbies and so basically it's protected. I'm a lawyer during the day, being around with my projects at night. So I just want to be here.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, good. Okay. 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 Gary? And Mark? Okay. That's on the that list you have Pat did? Okay. And Roberta? And Paul?
I'm Paul Moran, here I'm involved, and we have a patent that's pending, but I guess it's about to fly. On the fire retardant material, it's rendered good, so it will not burn on its own. We're excited about it to get somebody to get it to market. See something coming from the other direction now. Hopefully, I'm not hopefully, I'm positive of it. Very positive.
Yeah. Did you meet with the level terrain people yet?
Not yet, I called them again today,
Okay.
trying to set up an appointment.
Okay. And fella just walked in. If you have an idea and you haven't already disclosed it, you should keep it confidential unless it's patent pending. But we just round robin. Everyone talks about what they've got going on. So. Okay, for the inventors group.
Step into this avenue, and
Okay, how'd you find out about the group?
I've attended meetings off and on for
Oh, okay.
many years, I would say, during 12 years, maybe 15 years ago, something like this, happened out at CSU with the colleges.
Yeah, we used to run Fort Collins in the Springs.
That's where I first attended years ago.
Yeah, okay. So, like I say, my speaker called sick. I should mention, he's coming in a month on March 12th. And then the fourth Monday meeting, which I think is the 24th of February, I've got an expert, Brian Kelligan of Bison Company. He's got a whole lot of experience in manufacturing in China. So he's over the, I don't know, like a 20-year span. He's made over 100 trips there for his various products. So I've talked to him quite a bit. He seems to be real familiar with the manufacturing scene in China and how that works. So if you've got any inclination that may be something you'd be interested in, you'd be a great name to come to, learn some things, try to avoid mistakes or have realistic expectations about it. Anyway, I guess when you walked in, did you get one of these? They're on the table. There's a 5-page handout. Guess I should get in the camera view. So anyway, in Shane's absence, I'm just going to cover basic license agreements so you can have an idea what these are about. Please ask questions at any time they come up. You know, we have open Q&A during the presentation. So a license agreement, they usually can be pretty long and involved, depending on how many additional things they cover. There's basic license agreements for, say, patents, trademarks, copyrights, trade secrets even. You don't even have to have a federal right. You know, it's just basically any technology of value can be licensed to someone as long as they respect your rights to, you know, have your proprietary rights in it. So basically when you license to someone, you say, you know, you can use my idea and I won't sue you. But there's certain conditions that you want them to use, is like where you sell the product, the quality level of it, how they expose it, you know, and there's various control things. If you go to a license agreement that's highly involved, it's called a franchise agreement. So we say a basic patent agreement, patent license. We license just the technology. We have a few controls basically on the use of that technology. A franchise is like you're licensing out a whole business system and method, and that's a lot of non-proprietary stuff, like say your McDonald's licensee. It's like, you know, when you set up on your business, it's the architecture, it's the interior design, it's the look of it, it's processes you use for employees and products, and it's a lot of stuff completely outside of patent, trademark, and copyright. So that's like a total control thing. Franchises are kind of a specialty in themselves, but a lot of times people ask about them. And there's been success stories in that area and horror stories too. Kind of depends on the parties involved, but I mean, it can work out. But a lot of times the franchisee who is on the receiving end, as opposed to the franchisor, feels like they're over. Their hands are tied to run their business. Anyway, basic license issues. A license is a contract, and it's governed by state law. Sometimes if it's under a patent, it'll come into court because of the matter of the patent being federal. But, you know, basically, and it's a very feedback. I don't know. it's it's called a fiduciary agreement, which means it's a good faith agreement that reaches into the future, as opposed to an executory agreement or contract. So an executory is like you buy a car, you exchange money for the vehicle, you're done, you each go your own ways, and it's over with. So a license, you're reaching into the future and you're operating on good faith that someone's going to do what you want them to. And this is the trickiest thing about a license is that you're trusting someone with your technology and you want them to promote it and sell it and not to sit on it or do anything. So that's a lot of what we have controls in these agreements to make your licensee achieve certain milestones or pay minimum royalties, or they have to do certain things so they're not just sitting on your. Yeah, great. Yeah, that's a great question. So a good license agreement, that's called grant backs. So improvements to the product, you have to decide who's going to pay for the improvements, who's going to protect the improvements, and what are the rights to the improvements in addition to the royalties. So you want that pre-agreed to, because this is not uncommon. The licensee will seek to modify the product because they'll feel like, well, we want to make it more marketable or change it for a particular market. So that's something you want to have agreed to ahead of time, because that very often comes up. And of course, you're going to have prohibitions in a good agreement that they can't go around, say, your patent and become a competitor of yours on a similar product just outside the patent. So you try to prevent that, because a licensee is your worst risk for becoming a competitor of yours, because who knows more insider information other than a licensee? You know? Right, those would be separate. You know, trademark is licensing the use of the name. Yeah. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of parsing in these agreements, and what I mean is there's a lot of splitting up. Like the first one is whether it's exclusive or non-exclusive. So a licensee is going to want exclusive, which means they have all the rights. There's no competing licensees to deal with. Okay, so that's bad for you, the licensor. In other words, you've got no other options. You license to these people. They've got all the rights. You cannot license to anyone else for, say, a limited period. But if you give them exclusive, then you can force them to, say, pay minimum royalties or meet certain milestones. You don't want them to sit on your product, because it's the biggest risk, because they license it and then things aren't happening. Your patent's aging, your market's passing you by. So the way you protect yourself there is that you limit your license to short term, like 3 years or less, subject to renew. And then that way, if things aren't working out, you're out of the deal, you can find someone else. Or you can go non-exclusive, and then you license to multiple people, either by geographical territories, markets, product uses. There's all kinds of ways to split it up. But you don't have as much bargaining power with multiple licensees, because you can't usually make them give you minimal royalties or milestones or anything, because you've got other options. So, but the licensee, they'll typically want exclusive. So that is kind of tricky, because you've got to make sure that they're actually going to push your product and make it the way you want, the quality and yeah, there's books on different industries have different percentages. There's so many ways to calculate it, but say a typical calculation is based on cost, not retail price of a product, but the cost of it, because it's a more consistent number. And then, the rule of thumb is like 5%, but I've seen them run anywhere from 0.5% to 25%. A lot of that big change is due to what's traditional in that industry, plus the split of work between you and the licensee. So the licensee does all the work, like you, the licensor, do nothing, right? They do all the product promotion and manufacturing, go to trade shows, all this stuff. They're going to pay you a lower royalty. But if you help them, you give them technical assistance, you might supply them with products or raw materials, then the royalty will go up. So it's really a pretty open-ended agreement. And then the royalties themselves can be on staged percentages and proportions, like if the licensee sells above certain amounts, the royalties can go up or down, and they can change over time. So you try to give incentive to your licensee to do certain things. So if they sell above certain amounts, maybe you can drop the royalties so they're more motivated to sell more. Something. Yeah. Oh, well, that's a good question. I mean, a good license agreement, you'll have audit clauses, so you can go in and check their operations and their books to make sure they're being honest, because it's happened. Licensees who are doing high volumes and paying a lot of royalties, they're probably going to be motivated to figure out ways to reduce royalty payments and to under-report sales. This would be a typical thing. So larger companies that license, say in the fashion and clothing industry, like a name, and they have large manufacturers, they really have to watch their licensees that they're reporting correctly and not, stiffing them on the amount of royalties and stuff. So it's an ongoing management. Like I say, your licensee can become your worst competitor. And that's when Shane Pott comes, he's going to talk about his first licensee did actually infringe his product, quit selling his and was selling a knockoff. So, a lot of inventors think, oh, I got a license agreement. Man, I got it made, It's like, you got to be very careful. Because it's got to be someone you really can trust in the future and you keep close tabs on them. And make sure they're doing things the way you want. I don't know. It depends on the market and the particular licensee. Sometimes they'll want to license your technology and put it under their brand name, and they won't be interested in your particular trademark. So you may license that separately. So the good thing about trademark is it doesn't expire at least. Lasts forever as long as the product stays in commerce. Any other questions? Yeah. In a month, the 12th of March. Yeah. So he's going to, what I'm giving you here is just the legal framework of an agreement. He's going to give you his kind of like business experiences with licensees, but he had a bad experience with the first licensee, and then he got with the second one, and things are going a lot better. So one thing I always tell people, if you have a potential licensee, make sure you investigate them. Talk to their other people that have licensed with them, see if they're happy, check if they got any litigation history, if they've been known to stiff people, how well they operate, their reputation in the industry, lots of things. Well, everywhere, start with Google and their name, but if you can, better yet, talk to people who've done similar deals with them in the past. And you just have to use your judgment, because no matter what the piece of paper says, you got to know the quality of people you're dealing with. They're reasonable and fair. So that's why I got, I guess, item 4 under A, due diligence. Investigate them. I might say on this, if you license to a larger company, they'll probably have a canned agreement they'll want you to sign, and they won't be real flexible. So, but you still want to go through and know what you're getting into with them. Then it's kind of a business judgment thing, like maybe the license agreement doesn't have the most favorable terms, but the long-term business potential is really good, so maybe you'll accept it. You got to weigh that against maybe other potential licensees and their past reputation and stuff. So a licensee's kind of a quasi-partner of yours, but you got to keep your eye on them, make sure they don't infringe, make sure they're not lying about what they sell, make sure they push your product. The major thing in any agreement is it exclusive or not? Okay, so the licensee is going to want exclusive usually. But that means your hands are tied. You can't license to anyone else. So you got to think about that. That really confines you. But if they want exclusive, you can negotiate harder with them for higher royalties, guaranteed royalties. Any question? Yeah. Exactly. They may say, we don't want to do guaranteed royalties because that's too risky for us. And you can say, okay, I'll give you marketing milestones. You got to attend over a 3-year period, 4 trade shows, promote the product, advertise it this much. Some sort of things that show they're actively pushing it. Because I'm not saying all licensees are going to steal your product and infringe. They're maybe not that motivated, but this is what typically happens is they're going to get your product or your technology and just sit on it. That's the typical scenario, and that's what you have to prevent. Well, you're an inventor, you got a technology, you got a patent, right? Okay, the licensee is in that business, right? They have multiple product lines. And it's a matter of them putting the time and attention into your particular product. And you're kind of like, a bunch of kids, right? And everyone's vying for attention, and you don't want to get ignored. Yeah, you can, it's kind of difficult on a new product to get licensing right out of the gate unless you really have some special connections. So usually people have to kind of get the product, making and selling it, at least in small quantity, kind of proves it in the market. And then some of the licensees might be getting a hold of you. You're in a much better bargaining position. But like I say, and no matter what, make sure the agreement's pretty short term till you get a feel whether they're going to work or not. You don't want to be tied up. Because the most typical issue is they license, a year goes by, nothing happens. That's the worst thing. Because, the market's aging by you, your patent's aging, and all these things. Um, yeah, you can license like what's called a trade secret. You can license without a patent, definitely. You know, if it's something that has value and they can't easily duplicate without you, you know. I would say that something that's probably in the public domain that is easy to replicate, they're not going to pay you a royalty. Unless maybe you have a specialized expertise that they really need, you would help them. You know, I'm thinking of something like a unique manufacturing process. You know, like working with a difficult material. Well, no one else has this expertise except, say, your company. So they need you. You can license out that expertise on conditions like they need to keep it secret and not tell anyone else, right? Because then it could lose its value. So confidentiality is a big deal in these things, and a lot of times companies, if they get into a patent dispute, they'll have a confidential, you know, licensing settlement, where someone will agree to pay a royalty, and then they'll drop the lawsuits just to get it off the books. A lot of, there's a lot of things to watch for. I mean, your licensee, you know, has to comply with regulations and standards, and you got to cover, you know, if your licensee goes bankrupt, what happens to your product, tax issues, returns, warranties, all these things need to be discussed. You know, your licensee may be selling a lot of product. Okay, they come back on return, so you got to agree ahead of time who's going to get compensated for that, or can they reduce royalties a certain percent based on loss. Just so you know ahead of time what the potential issues are.
Have you had any issues?
Okay. It was too close.
Have you had any experience or issues with these companies that advertise their expertise in financing and helping negotiate?
Oh, licensing agents. Yeah, that's it's kind of risky. I mean, I would make sure that they have experience in your area and they've had success in your area. Because they'll probably want to take some upfront money or a percentage royalties for their contacts, you know, in that field. But I mean, a good one can certainly help you, but a bad one may put you in a deal that's not in your best interest.
I mean, have you had any of these companies that you have personal experience?
Oh yeah, we've had some present. I know some of them I wouldn't deal with, others I would. I would just look at their how long they've been in the business and how many deals they've done and the success they've had. 'Cause there's just a lot of players in that field that are kind of sketchy. You know, the invent help or the invention promotion companies, because the typical inventor, a lot of times they don't want to start a company, they don't want to contract out manufacturing and, you know, market and sell. So, oh, I just want to license it, you know. But it's really hard to do. And so these agent people, they swoop in and, you know, they tell the inventor everything they want to hear, and they sign on with them, and then they don't really find any really good deals. You know, it's like I say it's difficult unless the product's proven to some extent. Usually, see, I'm on near the bottom of page 3, but the product liability stuff, usually the licensee takes over that as part of the blanket policy, and that's an advantage. It's more economical for them to do that. That'll probably work to reduce royalties a little bit, but that gets you out of liability for issues with customers and misuse, whatever. There's kind of an important one. It's item 27 at the bottom of page 3. You want to prohibit the licensee from firstly stealing your trade secrets and secondly challenging their own intellectual property. Because a licensee could have an agreement with you and pay your royalties, and they go, you know what, we think we can challenge this patent and invalidate it. I can get away with that. I don't have to pay royalties anymore. So they might be motivated to do that. So you can have prohibitions that say, call it anti-cannibalism clause, that they can't, attack anything you license to them in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, there's always new twists in this. Yeah.
You can have those clauses in your agreement, but then fighting and litigating is entirely different. Matter of itself.
Well, what you want to do is just, you want to be able to get out of it and find another licensee. Most economical thing to do. It works better for you. And, they lose their right to use your technology. I don't know, most of the stuff on 4 is just typical legalese stuff. It's just, there's a lot of things surrounding the agreement. Like are assignments allowed, is sub-licensing allowed? Usually you want to stay in pretty good control of what the license is doing. Like, if he says, well, I assign, your rights to the license to my cousin who's making your product somewhere else. I don't even know this guy, right? So you might have some prohibitions on them shoving the work off to others. Things, you always want to know who you're doing. So, like in real estate, they usually prohibit subleasing. People try to do that with apartments, they'll sublease. They're gone for a while and rent it out to someone else, and of course then the landlord doesn't like not knowing who's in the place. So it's the same with your product. You want to know who's doing what, and that you have some controls over it. You can register license agreements with International Patent Office in Geneva or the United States Patent Office, just to give notice that a product gets licensed. It's not mandatory. Sometimes people want to keep it confidential. You can do that. Sometimes it's a good marketing tool, especially if you're non-exclusive. If your product's licensed, it shows it's got popularity and demand. So you can use that to show it to people that it's one of the things we do. Yeah, that's usually done by the licensor or the intellectual property owner, like paying renewal fees. That's although that can get a little bit involved, like let's say the licensee comes up with an improvement to the product, then your agreement was they would patent that improvement maybe, so then that patent's in their ownership, the improvement, and they'll be responsible for it as well and stuff. It's just product changes and improvements, you just want to agree ahead of time who's responsible, who's going to do what. Because a lot of times that comes up. The licensee's going to change some things around. I mean, I don't know how many times like you're patent searching, and every once in a while you'll come across a patent of a product you've seen, right? Not too often you do. But you know, the product you see in the market doesn't really look like what the patent's showing. I mean, it's kind of similar, but it's been changed some for whatever reasons. The whole thing with if you have a patent, I mean, it's an exclusionary right. It's a right to keep others from making, using, and selling, offering to sell and import the product. You don't have to make the product. There's no legal requirement to do that. And even the licensee, they could go outside the patent, you know, with the product, with design changes. That can happen. They still might succeed on that. Because it's just what you make and sell is not related to your patent at all. Your patent is strictly a shield against outsiders. So you can make and sell what's in the patent. You don't have to make and sell what's in the patent. You can make and sell something different from the patent. Yeah, that goes along to the proper marketing and stuff, like putting a patent number on the product, because the licensee, they're going to do the manufacturing, so they're going to be responsible for getting the right notices and all that stuff. Any other questions?
You wouldn't necessarily have to license and manufacture to sale.
You know, you can split it up any way you want, really. It can be by market, by area, any stage in the manufacturing process. You know, it may be, like you said, you just license out the manufacturer. It, I guess the point I want to make is that the agreement is pretty much custom between the parties. You know, this is just a kind of a framework that you know, they're different, they're vastly different depending on the industry. Yeah. Oh, that would be like an agent that finds licensees for others and stuff. Because there's you know, this whole subclass of people that broker license deals, and you know, and then they'll do cross licensing deals, like you license a technology to a company, and then maybe there's something they have you want to license back, cross license, and it benefits both people. Oh, for the agent? It If it's not up front, they'll probably want to take a third or fourth of the royalty. So a fair chunk of it. Again, that's negotiated, but usually people don't want to pay an upfront fee, so they'll say, well, you only get paid when you get a royalty for me. But they'll take a fair piece of it. And then you might also negotiate that they get that for a period. And then after a while, we'll give you a problem.
You hear this stuff on Shark Tank all the time. I don't know what football is. Sometimes they want to use the perfect movie. Other times they get their money, they put their money back. I'm sure this all kinds of negotiations here too.
Yeah, that can be, some of that's like operating agreements with investors and stuff like, they'll take a major share of the profits until they meet a threshold, and then they'll taper way off, like they got their payback, so now they'll cut back and let money go back to the company. I've seen deals like that. Because the investors, they want to recover first. The priority.
They want their money to be safe.
Yeah, on the future potential growth, that it's sometimes them coming in, they're going to have not only the recovery of the profits, but they're going to have a lot of say on regular things, which you don't want. I call it the big C. It's a control issue. I've just seen this with a few clients, like they had investors come in and there were like disagreements on how to run things. So, and sometimes in extreme case, the founder is weak. Yeah. And, because in the business end of things, there's so many ways to do the same thing. It's kind of critical what works. It's business judgment, like how do you sell, where do you sell, how much do you sell for, how do you package things, just on and on. And usually, like in a license agreement, those things are left open to the licensee. The licensee has a lot of freedom. And that's the difference. A license agreement, they just have the right to use your technology, but how they make and sell the products pretty much their bailiwick. Whereas a franchise, it's 100% control, beginning to end. Oh, yeah, like, yeah, you can run into sticky issues if that licensee's doing a competing product or kind of a nearly competing product. And there's a good chance of that because they're in a certain field, right? The licensee's in a certain field. And they may be licensing, products from other companies. And you're disclosing confidential information to them on your product. You want to know that confidential information doesn't migrate over to this competitor that's, also licensing to them. Yeah. And, it's, you got to watch that the licensee isn't pushing, one product at the expense of another. I think a lot of them, they wouldn't want to sell directly to competing products. I think everyone would be uncomfortable with that. Yeah, that's, you have like this general fiduciary clause, because it's a fiduciary agreement, so just broadly, that means they have to operate with good faith. Part of that is honesty and disclosure. So if there's something they're doing that's would be important for you to know, they have to tell you. Not hide it. Like, making it sound like your competitor's product. You'll want to know that. And then make your decision accordingly. Yeah. Yeah, what is the saying? Trust is verifying. What again? What page are you on? 2? Let's see what. Oh. Oh, okay. Remember what I was saying. Yeah, that would be a. Let's say you're licensing a trade secret. So the thing with a patent is when a patent expires, the license agreement has to die. There's no licensing rights. Because the patent dying kills the license agreement. But if it's a trade secret or something, you don't have that issue. So you can just continue. And subscriptions are kind of like a service. Like they kind of move software into that these days. You just pay an annual fee, you get access, you get automatic updates. Instead of the old method was you bought it, and you used it 3, 4 years and kind of got out of date, and you bought it again. So the companies, they like you to do a subscription because they get like, annual money and continuous. A lot of them have gone to that model, which I think it's kind of anti-consumer because it forces you to, you have to pay for all the updates. Whereas before, you could buy a chunk of software and you could use it until it didn't work anymore. Right, they can obsolete you, yeah. Right, because there's no way you're going to be using software that's like a decade old. It's not going to work on, like new operating systems or something. Yeah. That really is, that's kind of a strategy of keeping royalty revenue going past the so that you're actually kind of licensing, say, supporting entities. That's going to expire. Yeah, I think about half the licensing deals, the person had the product in the market first. Because it's just what licensees want to do, I guess I should say from a business standpoint, they don't want to launch new products. They want to scale up existing stuff. So let's say you're making and selling in a local area. You want to go national or international. So that's a great opportunity. The licensee can scale you out through their distribution channels Right, and it's a good way to leapfrog into foreign countries. Like you can go to a licensee that's in your field, and then they can do your technology. They might have a factory and then their sales organization in a foreign country. So it's a way for you to leapfrog in there and get your product out, whereas it would be very tough to build that. Yeah. My old company, we did that on our pumps and compressors, like say you get into Japan, we licensed out to a company that made a product. We were making pumps, so they made pumps, but not exactly the same pump. But we could use their factory and their sales and distribution network for our pumps. So it was a way to get into a foreign market without a lot of time. But you get your product in a remote place, you know. Huh? I didn't hear you. Oh, yeah, they, like you might send them parts and they do final assembly, or they might make part of the parts there. It's really open. Or, you know, they might stage it so that when they first license, you're sending them most of the parts, and then they start making more and more as they get expertise. So yeah, I would look at the licensing as more of a step 2 or 3. Either scale up or get into home markets. All right, thanks. So that's about all I have for now. I know it's not the most exciting, but when you come into it, it'll be a big deal. Yeah. So just in summary, license agreements, they reach into the future. So issues, is it exclusive or not? That's always the first major issue. Second one, make sure it's short term. Absolutely no more than 3 years, preferably 2 years, maybe even just a year. So that you're testing the waters of these people. If they don't work out, you want to say, okay, I'm not renewing. Years gone by, I'm looking for someone else. You would never sign a long-term deal. It's too risky. It's like I say, the most typical problem is the licensee. You know, you do the license agreement and they don't do it. They sit on it. So that's what you want to prevent. So turn this on.